Hello, we're going to be discussing the properties of algebra. There are 14 different types of properties.
Is the order in which you add or multiply and does not change the sum. So A plus B equals B plus A. So you can see the order has been changed. And same thing for multiplication. And here are some other problems.
The associative property is the way you group three numbers in a sum or product that does not change the sum or product. For example, A plus B, both are in parentheses, plus C equals A plus parentheses B plus C parentheses, negative 3 plus 2 parentheses plus 1 equals negative 3 plus parentheses 2 plus 1. Notice how the parentheses change the grouping in the equation, and this applies to multiplication as well. So it's going to be A plus B parentheses times C equals A times B plus times C parentheses. And so it would be negative 2 times 7, 4 equals 2 times 7 times 4 parentheses.
Identity property is the sum of a number and zero. Is the number an addition? In multiplication, the product of a number and 1 is that number. For example, a plus 0 equals 0 plus a, which equals a. A times 1 equals 1 times 1, which equals a. More examples are negative 5 plus 0 equals negative 5, and negative 5 times 1 equals negative 5.
The inverse property of addition is when the sum of the number and its opposite is 0. The inverse property of multiplication is when the product of a non-zero number and its inverse is 1. So a plus negative a equals 0. A times 1a equals 1. 5 plus negative 5 equals 0, while 8 times 1/8 equals 1. So essentially the opposite.
The subtraction property of equality is when subtracting the same term from both sides of the equation. So if x plus a equals to b, then we would subtract a to both sides of the equation, and we would get x equaling to b
The
minus
addition property of equality is when adding the same term to both sides of the equation. So here's an example. X minus a equals b. So you would add a on both sides, and you're trying to solve for x. So x equals a plus b.
Multiplication property of equality is when multiplying the same factor to both sides of the equation. Some examples are a equals b. A times c equals b times c. 5 equals 5. 5 times 2 equals 5 times
The
2.
division property of equality is when you divide the same divisor on both sides of the equation. So when you have 5 equals 5, whatever you do on this side, which is dividing by 2, you divide on both sides. Divide by
The
2.
reflexive property is when a number is equal to the same number or value. So a equals a, 5 equals 5.
The symmetric property just switches the equation. So, all you do is move 6 plus x equals 5 plus 1. Same equation, just switch.
And the transitive property has 3 steps. So if a equals b and b equals c, then a equals c.
The substitution property is an equation in which a is distributed to each value in a given equation, b plus c or b minus c. X equals 3, so x plus 5 equals 8 then. Then you substitute x with 3, and then 3 plus 5 equals
The
8.
distributive property is an equation in which a is distributed to each value in a given equation, b plus c or b minus c. For example, a is multiplied to b plus c, it will equal to a times b plus a times c. If 5 is multiplied to 4 plus 6, it would equal to 5 times 4 plus 5 times 6.
The zero property is when the product of the number and 0 is 0. So, if you have 5 times 0, it will always be 0 with any number. The property of negative 1 is when the product of a number and negative 1 is the opposite. So when you times 100 by negative 1, it becomes negative 100, which is the opposite.
We are solving a multiple choice question. So here's a question. Which property of real numbers justifies going from step 3 to step 4? So here is the problem that is being given, and it shows you the steps. We're going to look at 3 and 4. So step 3, negative 5x equals 45, and it jumped to x equals negative 9. And we need to know what kind of property it is. So basically you are solving for x, so you have to divide by negative 5 on both sides, and you get negative 9. So the answer to this question would be division property.
Alright, now it's time to determine which property justifies each step on the equations listed on the board. So first we have the given equation, which is 7 times x plus 3 equals 4 plus 3x. Now, in the next step, we have 7x plus 21. Now, it seems like we have to distribute the 7 to both of the x and the 3, which makes 7x plus 21. That is the distributive property. There we go. Now, the next step, we see that the 4 plus 3x has switched. So that would mean that it would be the commutative property. Now we see a 4x plus 21 equals 4. Now you notice that the 3x has disappeared from this side. That means you have to subtract 3x. But that would also mean you have to subtract 3x from both sides. So that would be the subtraction property of equality. And this one, the same rule applies, because now you have a negative 17. You can only get that by subtracting 21 from 4 on both sides. So that, again, is also the subtraction property. Now, we have to get rid of the x. And that 4 is blocking our way. So what you have to do is times it by the
multiplicative,
which is the inverse of 4. So that would be the
multiplicative inverse property.
Okay. So from this equation, you have to multiply the inverse on this side. But you also have to do it on this side as well, following the multiplication property of equality. And you end up getting this. And the last one here, after you're done multiplying these, you get negative 17 over 4. And that would be the substitution property, because that is what is x. Property. There's that.